in the area a lot, but also over the last 25 years, I've also lived in 9 different states. So my children, I have 3 boys, one's 28, one is 22, and one is 15. All have been in various schools in the Brainerd system, Baxter Elementary, Forest View, and the high school. And but also in 6 other states, I've had my kids in different schools. So I've seen a lot of what works and a lot of what doesn't. So as far as introduction, that's about it. I would say in the interest of the more important things that you folks have to deal with this evening, I'd like to keep my remarks brief, see if anybody has any questions, and let Mr. Nystrom have the microphone.
Okay, well, we thank you for for your interest, and we're always looking for extension of this board as some transition out. Mr. Campbell is retiring after this year. We can't see Reed, only hear him, I guess. But so thank you for your interest, and thanks for presenting and sharing some time tonight.
I do have a question for Mr. Boyles. So you have a son with special needs. Can you explain a little how you've seen different school districts and how you developed your passion for education?
Sure. It's kind of an interesting thing because of the spread between my children, 7 years between each one. Somewhere after 14 years, I read a book and figured out what was causing it, and we stopped having those kids. But so each kid was like an only child because of the spacing between them. So each one of them had a very unique educational experience. So I've had kids in school systems in Tennessee, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, Illinois, California, places like that. And I think what excites me about the district that we have here is that we're not afraid to ask for resources, and we have the resources available. So in some of the systems I was in, like in Louisiana, there just was nowhere to go get the money. And here it's more about community engagement and finding ways to create the best possible return on the investment. So the passion, varied with each kid depending on what programs they were in and whatever. But the way I feel about education in general is that the education that our children receive in our primary and secondary schools, I like to think of it as a container. And the better quality that the education that we provide is, the larger that container becomes. And when we send those kids out into the world, whether that's to further their academic career by going on to college or university, or working in a skilled trade, or working in one of our local resorts or seasonal businesses around here, whatever, experience becomes the water that goes in that container. So the bigger the container, the more water it can hold. So that's what makes me passionate about education, because it's what gives the kids a jump start on whatever it is they're going to do next in their lives. So if you want to talk about my youngest, who is autism spectrum disorder, there's obviously a few different wrinkles to the educational process with the IEP. And I think it was really eye-opening, because I think back to when I was a kid, and I'm sure that all of these special needs categories existed. We just didn't have names for them, right? There was a hyper kid. There was, all these different people, and we didn't really know how to deal with them. So I'm feeling good that I live in a time where there's all these resources available, and the staff at Forest View in particular was wonderful in really working with it with limited resources again, and coordinating with community organizations, like the Paul Bunyan organization that deals with the ASD kids and stuff like that. So it made me really trust this school system in particular. As to passion about education, I've always been passionate about education, but my job for 25 years generally kept me traveling all over the country, somewhere around 40 to 44 weeks out of the year. So it's only recently that I've had the time to devote to paying the Brainerd Lakes area back for what it's done for me over the last 45 years. Hope that answered your question, Mr. Nystrom.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I like being on the spot.
Oh.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
Well, thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
All right, up next, Mr.
Wow.
Nystrom.
I have never sat in that chair, so.
And, I should have mentioned too, obviously this is televised, so it's really an opportunity for our board candidates as they're presenting tonight and at our next meeting, that the public gets a chance too to see and hear the passion. Bob?
This is really intimidating looking at you guys. So anyway, my name is Bob Nystrom. I'm running for my 5th term on this board. I have served 16 out of the last 19 years. I had a 3-year break in there. I have lived in Brainerd all my life. I'm 63 years old. And even though I've lived in Baxter for the last 30-some years, I'm really a Brainerd boy. And this, for me, the community and the school district are part of my blood, okay? I will fight for this school district. I will fight for this community to help them succeed in whatever way possible. So as I grew up, I had a lot of mentors. And I lived just 3 blocks either at the shops, which is the railroad, or they worked at the paper mill. And I learned a lot from them about work ethic, being honest, being fair. My fathers, one who lived in Brainerd was a car mechanic. The one that lived in Crosby was a farmer. And I certainly learned hard work from them and also encouragement. But I also had teachers that were mentors. And in elementary school, I had Clara Workman in 2nd grade. She replaced Miss Flata, who actually died during Christmas break, and she took over the rest of the year. Phenomenal teacher. She taught me about focus and staying on task. My 4th grade teacher was Miss Semensky. She taught me what love and gratitude meant in dealing with people. In middle school, got a little tougher. My 2 mentors there were John Williams and John Matthews, who still both live in this community. Great people, and they taught me that you have to be mentally tough and always work hard for a goal, set goals. And in high school, and I've told this story many times before, but my 11th grade chemistry teacher, Bob Claxton, he knew I wanted to go into pharmacy, but I was sort of a slacker. And it was hard for me to apply myself. And one day he grabbed me by the collar because I was getting a D in his class, and he brought me out in the hallway, slammed me against the locker, and believe me, it was totally fine. It taught me a lesson. He said, "Bob, you will never get into pharmacy if you can't even, get through an entry-level chemistry program, and you got to apply yourself." And Bob was also a pharmacist, Bob Claxton, and he pushed you. And that is still happening today. The teachers that we have in our school district are no different than when I was in school in the 60s and 70s. They push kids, they're passionate about education, and they work really hard. And if it wasn't for the teachers that we have, we wouldn't be a great district. And I talked a little bit about community, but to me, the community is the heartbeat of the school district is the heartbeat of the community. Because if the school district isn't strong, it reflects on everything in our community. When the school district is strong, you will attract people that want to move here. When they move here, that will get businesses wanting to add jobs, or even light manufacturing that might want to move here to set up camp, because we have a great school district. And this has happened for years. And so here we are, we're in 2020, we have a pandemic. We also have social strife that we're dealing with. And we have a new building project. And so for me, some people would say, Bob, maybe you're getting a little old, 16 years, let's let the young blood come in. But what I have is I have passion and I have experience. And for me, that experience will help us well in the next 4 years as we deal with a pandemic that will be really hard to deal with, finish our building projects, and work on social justice within our school district, as that is, that obviously has come out this summer. This is not a part-time job for me. I want to make that very clear. I recently retired. This is not a retirement job, or a part-time job. This is a full-time job for me. And it's not just meetings that we do. There's a lot more that we do, whether it's going into the buildings, meeting with Superintendent Larson, and I've always put everything I have into the school district. So as I end this, I just want to thank the community for supporting us, for supporting the building project. People take that lightly, but there are very few school districts that would have voted for this scope where all buildings are being affected in this project. And I am so thankful for this community because they come through for us time and time again. And so we have to make a promise to them that we will do the best job that we can. And so for me, it's taking care of kids, then it's taking care of our teachers and staff. And as long as we can do that, and I also want to assure the community, this is a great board. These are 6 committed people that really work their butts off to provide a quality education for all children. It doesn't matter what their parents' income is or the color of their skin or any of that. Everyone is equal in this district. We take anybody. And I also want to thank Superintendent Larson. She does a phenomenal job. She's one of the best superintendents we've ever had, and I know a lot of them going back. So you're really great. So thank you. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. It's great. Thank you to both Kevin and Bob for sharing and with us this evening. Yeah, appreciate that. Well, from there, we'll move into our building updates with Damian Williams, ICS here.
Okay, here we go. Here's our, so this is the bond improvements update for September 14th, 2020. The Brainerd High School, areas 1 and 3 upper level are occupied. 1 and 3 main levels also occupied. Area 2, we're continuing the sheetrock drywall. Performing Arts Center, we're working on the pouring of the balcony concrete. Areas 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are occupied. And in area 10, the pool excavation has begun. You're going to see a lot of occupied statements as you look through this. I guess what I want to tell you is, all the contractors and our team successfully installed about $39.5 million of construction in the last 16 weeks. No easy task. August was a challenging month, but we really want to commend the district staff. They've done a great job working with our teams, getting these buildings ready for school. Couldn't be happier with the results. We did a tour of Harrison and the high school today, and it's phenomenal to see how much things have changed and how great these facilities look. So really super excited about everything that is going on. We're at a point now where we're working on punch list and closeout on some of these projects, and the other projects we're gearing up and getting ready for the next wave. So, but I'll tell you, I can't say enough good things about the contractors in our area and the district staff and our own ICS team members. They've really done a great job. So. And I believe me, everybody is just thrilled to death to have school open and have these facilities with kids in them. So, anyway, sorry, went into a little tangent there, but it's really great to see you guys. So, the high school, real exciting thing happening right now. The pool excavation, we are excavating down to a depth of 36 feet. We are one third along the way right now, so about 11 feet. It's going to be a giant hole there. So over the next couple of weeks, if you get a chance to take a drive by and look, there'll be a lot of change there. There's a lot of trucks going back and forth and a lot of action. So.
Damien, can you tell me why you have to go 36 feet? I mean, even tonight was just amazing how deep it is.
Yep.
And it's like, so let's say the pool is 12 feet deep or 15 feet at the deepest point.
Yep.
Why do you have to go 36 feet? It just seems like so deep.
So the pool deck itself is, I believe, 16 feet below grade, below the surface. And then we have the depth of the pool, so that's 26 feet. But what's really driving that, Lane, is the actual footing depths that it's going to take for the facility itself. We have some large footings that are going to be holding Quince Street. That has to take that pressure from the highway. We also have a lot of pressures coming from the existing buildings that we're building in between. So that's driving that depth. So, and I hope I did good justice to that for Scott, but that's what I've been told. So.
Reed's shaking his head, so.
Oh, is he giving me a nod? Thanks, Reed.
Yeah.
Any questions on the high school?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
And I apologize I wasn't able to ask the principal this question, but next step would be you, I guess. But the question I have is, and I probably know the answer to this, I just forget, are there gender neutral bathrooms at the high school or in the new portion of the high school included?
That is a great question. I have not, I believe we do have gender neutral bathrooms. I know we do at the elementary schools. However, I did not walk into the high school bathrooms recently to see the stalls, like in Area 8. So, and Scott, if you're out there, if you want to just chime in.
Yep, I was just going to chime in here. There are single-use gender stalls.
What was that, Scott? Try again.
There are single-use, non-specific bathrooms around the facility.
Oh, okay.
So the answer is yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
They're primarily in the Performing Arts Center as well as Area 8.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Perfect. South Campus, project update, DD complete. And so we're moving into design development is wrapping up, and we're going to be working on the estimate. So we'll be reviewing that in the upcoming meetings. A lot of good progress is being made on that facility. New Baxter Elementary, the building is occupied. We're working on the second gym. We're going to be wrapping up the second gym here in late October. It's going to be completed. Basically going to be working on the flooring. Flooring starts mid-October, so November 1st, that facility will be ready to be occupied. Otherwise, we're working on the punch list, and then we're also working on commissioning of the HVAC. Nisswa Elementary, again, the building is occupied, working on the punch list, and again, commissioning the HVAC. And just stop me if there's any questions as I go here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it punch list last minute stuff?
No, typically on a summer remodel, Sue, there's usually roughly anywhere from 400 to 500 punch list items on a project the size of Nisswa. And it usually takes us, anywhere from 30 to 60 days to complete those punch list items. And then also the commissioning of the HVAC. We always target about December 1st to be 100% complete. So that's always our goal. Okay. Harrison Elementary, the building is occupied. Exterior site work is going to be completed the week of September 14th. We had some containers that we just emptied out and moved out. We've seen that tonight. We'll get that cleaned up, and then a punch list work, and then HVAC commissioning. So, again, a lot of good work getting put in place. Getting things wrapped up. Garfield Elementary, the building is occupied. Exterior finishes are being completed. There's a few odds and ends that we're working through, just some masonry and some flashing and up at the roof, but pretty minor items. Interior vestibule aluminum frames and doors will be installed. We did have some issues with COVID with some door frames. They came in late. We did do some temporary doors to get our occupancy, and now we're going to get those installed as well. Of course, working with the principal, Jody, to get those installed. And then we're working on the punch list for phase 1, and we're doing HVAC commissioning. Lowell, mechanical and electrical and plumbing rough-in activities in the new gym and classroom tower are taking place. The new gym roofing system was completed. Stud framing in the new gym has started. Steel erection at the admin area is nearing completion. Exterior glazing systems at the classroom tower and the new gym are in progress. So here's a project that we're going to continue till the construction will go till about February 1st. So we're still hard at it. Construction stopped on some projects. We're still hard at it in other projects. So Lowell will be still a lot of change coming. Riverside Elementary, asphalt paving is completed at the south and east side of the building. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins take place in Area B, AST and staff lounge. Storefront glazing systems in Area B. Exterior brick veneer walls were completed also at Area B. So with that, any questions at all? I know I went a little long.
You missed the early learning center back there.
Did I skip right through it?
I think so. Warrior.
Well, that project is very important because we are starting construction on the 29th. We have had our pre-construction meeting and we are getting ready to go. So we'll be talking about a possible building kickoff with the community. So that's something that's going to be coming up here shortly.
So is all the programming that's gonna be taking place at the Early Learning Center, has it been moved over? Has it been moved over to the Warrior Early Learning Center?
No, because we have to do the construction there first, but that'll all be done around mid-January.
Yeah, I think it's a February 1st completion date.
February 1st,
Yep.
okay. And then we'll kind of see if we decide that we want to move early childhood at that time or wait until the next school year. But, no, but we have all of the kids accommodated for throughout the district, so, yeah.
Just a quick comment on the Baxter Elementary School.
Yep.
And I don't want to be overly dramatic with this, but I have a 9-year-old son who's in 4th grade at the Baxter Elementary School. And he 100% gives it 2 thumbs up. So he loves it.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Damien, I just wanted to thank you and your team for the excellent work that you guys have done. It is phenomenal. And when you told me the story today about how some of the project managers did work where a contractor had failed on their own time, I mean, that is dedication and hard work. So thank you. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, those
for the
guys,
job you guys have done.
our team is very committed. They've done a great job. I can't be happier with the team that we have here. So,
Yeah, I wish everyone could see the inside of Harrison because it's a brand new school inside of that old building. It's just
Unbelievable.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Damien. I was going to piggyback a little bit on your comment as well. You know, when this referendum went through and the idea of investing $205 million into the community, we knew that this summer was going to be hard and a big push and the summer slam, as you and the project managers call it. We knew that in itself is a huge mountain to climb. And then to throw on top of it the pandemic, and I think that's where our staff just really, I know this just added stress. And so this comment also goes to our staff for being tough to help us get through, this first day of school, this first week, on top of a whole building slam, and then throw in the pandemic, all these obstacles that have just been thrown at us. And boy, that's a testament for this community and coming together and working well together. Wasn't easy, and it's not over.
no.
There's a lot more to do.
There's more to do for sure, but
Wow, now we can start building on this. So thank you and the rest of the team.
yep, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we're going to get an update on our back-to-school update and how smooth and easy everything's going.
Yep, you're welcome.
Are you guys gonna do the things for me too when I talk, or? Sure. Otherwise I can sit there and click.
We'll click for you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I think you're up there.
I'll take care of it.
Okay. while they're getting ready, I too just want to reiterate what was just said about everything that's happened this past summer, that we knew that it was going to be the Summer Slam with the construction project, and we knew that that was going to be challenging in and of itself. And then to throw a global pandemic on top of it all, how our administration and our staff and all of the people that I see out here as well came together to start on time, to have the classrooms ready for the kids, to learn a new model and for the hybrid, something totally different than what we did last spring or what we did a year ago, and then to make it come across just as smooth as it did is just incredible. And so I too want to reiterate and thank everybody for their dedication, because it truly took a partnership to provide the education that's available at Brainerd Public Schools. One of the things that came up last week, as everyone's aware, we had our first case that we're aware of COVID. But as the week got started last week, it was so much fun to have the children and the staff back together again, teaching and learning and providing high quality instruction. That it's just after 6 months, I don't think anybody realized just how much we missed one another and seeing the kids. Even today again at the high school, watching the kids participate in swimming and playing volleyball and playing football and just, it's just that little bit of normal that we're missing so much right now, that it's just heartwarming to see that little bit of normal come back in our education system. And I want to take the time also to thank the Board of Education, because we have asked a lot of you over forever, since I've been here anyway, but over the last 6 months in particular, we've asked you to believe in us, to support us, to provide us with unlimited resources, and you have done that, and you have been visionary, you have been supportive, and we can, as a district, cannot thank you enough, because we couldn't have done any of this if we didn't have your approval. And so thank you for that. I also want to say that I'm incredibly excited about the professional growth mindset that we've seen amongst our staff, amongst our students and our families, and that triad that we've seen, and how people have been working together to provide the best education that they can for our kids. Families have been partnering with teachers, and teachers with kids, and everyone together. And the professional development and growth mindset has just been phenomenal. And I also want to thank all of our leadership team and our teachers and everyone for working tirelessly to make sure that when we are asked to do a distance model, or we're asked to do a hybrid learning model, that we don't just jump in and do whatever seems easiest. People have been fighting to do the right thing. And I truly believe, and I know our team believes that as well, that we have the 3 right teams in Brainerd right now, that at whatever time, if we have to make some changes, that they're synchronous, that we can do the work that we need to do at the time that we need to do it. And that doesn't come easy. That takes a lot of dedication and teamwork, and people making sure that we're doing everything MDE has asked us to do, along with ensuring that the safety protocols as required and suggested by MDH are in place. And our staff has just been incredible, and I couldn't thank them enough or be more proud to work with this group to do that. As you're aware, last Friday we had our first case in our school, 4 days into this, and that's been really hard. It's been really hard on all of us. Today we've done a lot of soul searching as a team to make sure that we're doing everything, because our number one goal in this whole project is to make sure that we have safe and secure environments for our learners and for our staff. And although we continue to do everything we can, we're still going to have some of these cases that we want to address. tonight is going to be a night where we're going to highlight some of the wonderful things that have happened over the course of the last week. But I want you to know also that along with the highlights in each of our departments, the hybrid model, COVID-19, the distance learning model, trying to shift them and so on, has created a number of challenges. And when we were meeting as a leadership team last week, we said, you know, it's important that the board and the community knows the really good stuff, the highlights that are going on, but is also aware of some of the challenges that the directors in our district are contending with to make sure that we are doing all of those little bullets that I just talked about and to ensure that they're happening. And so tonight is just kind of it's a recap of the week, of all the good stuff that happened, but also just to make you aware of some of the things that are challenges and that we feel that could be challenges for us moving forward, and so that everyone has the same information moving forward. And the other thing that I put on this slide is that I just want to remind the board and I want to remind the community that we're going to continue to do as we've done thus far, and that is to provide high-quality communication and to keep being transparent and having the truth out about everything that's going on, and we're going to continue that high-quality communication as we move forward. So I'm not going to have a lot of this presentation today, but I'm really tickled because so many of our district leaders are going to be here to talk about their programs and what's going well and what they think that everyone needs to know as we move forward. The next slide, and I'm going to go through this really super quick, that these are the goals again. If you remember that in all three of the models that we had 4 goals. The first one was to prioritize the safety for our students and staff, prioritize in-person learning as much as we can, especially for our youngest learners and for those with specialized needs. We want to implement learning models that use science-based formulas provided by MDH and under the direct guidance of our local public health officials. And we want to support the planning and flexibility that differentiate approaches to teaching and learning using the resources we have. And once again, as I put at the bottom, we really believe that our district has the right in-person, distance, and hybrid learning models as we move through this. And we couldn't have done it without the support from the board giving us the resources to make sure that we have it. So the next piece I'm just going to go through real quickly. These are all of the presentations that we're going to have tonight. I'm just doing the welcome back. And I've went through the goals already. Tim and Heidi are going to be next, and they're going to review the hybrid models, some of the wonderful things that we've learned about that just in 4 days, and some of the challenges that we've come across or that we might be faced with in the future. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the trends, some of the staffing concerns that have come up because of COVID, transportation, technology, food service, building and grounds. We want to be honest and share with you what we've learned about our enrollment and our distance learning. And also, Mercy is going to be here to talk a little bit about the CARES budget and the funding that we have and how we're using those dollars to help us to get through all the challenges that we're being faced with right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim and Heidi, and they're going to update you on the hybrid model. And we also want you to ask questions at any time if you have questions about things that have been going on or concerns that they're bringing forward.
We also have all of our, is that on?
It doesn't sound that way. Change.
Okay. We also have all of our building administrators down in room 200. So if there's something specific to a grade level or a building level, we can seek their input as well. So they're all with us this evening.
Yeah, and they're willing to come in here too if you have questions or whatever and want to ask. So, go ahead.
Well, in terms of highlights, the biggest highlight of them all is the return of kids. Our students have come back to us, and just in the few days that we've had them with us, what we're seeing is how happy they are to be back. The number one piece of feedback we're getting is how good kids are feeling about coming back. My son or daughter is happy again. They're seeing their friends, they're seeing their teachers, they're back in their schools. So bringing that back together, it's only a positive for the social emotional health of the kids, for the staff, for the families. So that's our number one takeaway right there. Clearly, not everything that occurred in the first 4 days was shiny, polished, and perfect. We ran into some bumps, we had some challenges, and they're not going to go away anytime soon, but we've made tremendous progress on them. We do not have a challenge in front of us that we cannot solve at this time. We have full faith that we can do that. Some of them are a little bit more intractable. They're going to take a little bit more time. And I'll go through some of those as we go through the presentation. But right now, in terms of the successes, it's just great to have the kids back. I was here last spring and I told you that it was how heartbreaking it was for teachers not to see their kids at the end of the school year. So they're hungry for them to be back, and we're very grateful that they are. The schedules and models that we developed around instruction and assessment, we were able to deploy on time. Not every deployment was a 100% success, but overall, it was truly impressive to see in the compressed amount of time that we had from the end of July to September 8th, the ground that we covered. And even just the differences between Tuesday, what things looked like, to Friday, was a tremendous move through. Anytime we start something that's truly unknown, it's risk. And that entrepreneurial spirit is absolutely essential to take risk. And what we were able to do was put it out there and hope that the plane would fly. And honestly, I did not know if it would, but it did. Did it rattle and rumble? Oh yeah, it did. But it got up off the ground. It's in the air, and it's getting smoother every single day. Safety and security for students and staff are at the forefront of all decision making. We've been trying to balance an aspirational and aggressive attempt to push the rigor of learning because of what we knew students had lost last spring. As far as we could, we accepted the challenge that the governor gave us for full comprehensive public education. We're making sure that we are covering the standards to the level of the benchmark level of grade level learning that the standard represents. A lot of places are not. At least they're not publicly owning that their plan won't get them there. If we're sending packets home just by themselves and having students do rote work, it's a lot easier on all of us. We get some sleep, but it's not great learning. We've chosen the higher path. And as a result, it's steeper, it's a harder climb. It's taking us a little bit longer in a few areas to get it to where we need it to be, but we're on the way. A lot of districts our size, particularly in the suburbs of the metro, they wanted to do what we wanted to do. And they bailed. They delayed the start of school for a week. They chose to go to just full distance learning right out of the gate. The dedication of our staff, our teachers, our principals, our association heads, our clerical, our custodians, every unit, the coordinators, the cooks, the paraprofessionals, it's been an amazing commitment. One thing that we've learned here is how interconnected we are. One of the things you're going to see overall in the presentation tonight is when a challenge pops up in one area, that ripple effect is it's a challenge that pops up in many areas. When there's a challenge in transportation, if we're short on bus drivers and a bus has to do a double run, so students are arriving late, that creates an instructional challenge for my teachers. All of these are solvable problems, but all of these are real challenges. The exciting thing is nobody's blinking. We're staying to the course. We've set that point on the horizon, and we're working towards it, and we're not changing it. It's been courageous. It's been exciting to be a part of. Everyone's tired. We all know that. It has been 80-hour weeks for 5 straight weeks. I don't think a person in my office in teaching and learning has had a weekend off in 5 weeks. We're not even supposed to work on weekends. They do it because they're committed, they believe in the mission, and they believe in the kids and our staff. We're running the sprint right now. What transitions here is the teachers now pick up the marathon. 5 weeks has been rough. We are tired, we're a little cranky, we're frustrated, but we got it done. The teachers take the baton at this point, and what they'll do is they'll run the marathon. And because it's a marathon, we have to understand that it's the finish that matters. We're not at full speed quite yet, but it's day 5 of a 168-day school year. We will be at full speed far faster than we thought we really would be, but it's going to take us a couple times. So we'll talk through a few examples. Execution during week 1 was more comprehensive than in the past. Okay, I skipped one, I'm sorry. Teachers were better prepared for the implementation of the Google Classroom in the spring. We developed a lot of capacity in the spring, and we built on that over the summer. And by and large, what we saw was teachers were able to deploy a far more clear, structured, and comprehensive instructional experience for students. People started on the same page on day 1. So it wasn't as it was in some cases in the spring, I'm not there in the pacing guide. So they had to go do something else. They couldn't leverage the collaborative nature of the team to help them. Now everyone knows, be on the same page. And they are. We've gone through and standardized elements of the structure of Google Classrooms, down to the icons that teachers will use to make sure that our hardest to reach learners have common experiences, and that the families supporting them see the same icon for homework versus assessment versus project that they see in their kindergarten class, the child's class, they see in their high school class. So these pieces are all adding up to a much better product. The execution during week 1 was more comprehensive. Until in spring, we tore out standards. We said, we're not covering this standard. We're just going to focus on a smaller subset of what we were supposed to do. Not now. Every single standard that's identified on the curriculum maps that I've brought before you for the last 7 years are being fulfilled. That's the challenge, and they're meeting that challenge. It's a huge success. Direct instructions time with certified staff. Teachers are able to get their learning models up quickly. Because we gave them standardized templates for what a Google Classroom should look like, they were able to cut right to the chase of building content, designing instructional activities, and having the conversations about how to assess them. There was less, not none, but there was less of the, how do I do this in a Google Classroom? So we're leveraging that expertise. That's allowing us to provide a differentiated experience for our learners, which is what we would want to provide if they were in person with us fully in all contexts. It is not as good as that in person. It never will be. Relationships matter, and relationships require contact. But it is, again, far better and far healthier than it was in the spring. Not perfect, but far better. Students are following the guidelines. They've adjusted to the PPE and the safety regulations with no hesitation. It has not been an issue. I have been out in the schools quite a bit in the last couple days, and when they go out to playground, they don't even take their mask off. They just keep going. And some of the consternation there about the mask wearing, and honestly, it seemed a little bit more like an adult issue, not an issue for the kids. Okay? So the students have been wonderful, and they've rolled with it. They're highly resilient. They're showing good stamina. They're dealing with the construction. They're dealing with the social distancing. We should be proud of our kids as much as we were proud of our staff. We've increased technology training in case of full-time. One of the things that we built into the curriculum at every single level for the inbred hybrid portion of those two of the 3 models is preparing kids for the possibility to go to distance learning. We had no chance to prepare anyone in last spring. We were all here Sunday morning, that Sunday in March. We'd shut it down, called the snow days, got the teams in, started working, but there was no time to teach kids how to learn in Google Classroom. So unless your teacher had been a real forward-thinking teacher and been working on it, you weren't ready. Now we have an entire curriculum predicated on being able to do distance learning, and we're moving through it step by step by step. We're creating activities and assignments for them that can allow them to learn in the supported environment of the classroom now, in case those skill sets are needed to support learning if and when we go to distance learning. Challenges, or were there any other positives? You got my list.
There's lots of positives.
Yeah, and Heidi's the optimistic one, so, okay, you know me, I'm usually the dour, fact-based dating guy.
I think Tim did a nice job summarizing it. The highlights truly have been the kids and the students. I made it to every building the first day and then Nisswa on day 2, and the resounding factor is students happy to be back in buildings and teachers happy. I actually saw a high school teacher jumping on their desk, excited to be their teacher, excited to have students back, and kids were just clapping. And I agree, all the guidelines, all the restrictions, the social distancing, the spaces at lunch, eating lunch in their rooms with teachers, no matter what that model, kids have adapted. And staff are working really hard. So I would say those are all really, really strong highlights. We continue to have ongoing challenges with the hybrid model. The biggest challenge we're going to have and have at this moment is staffing. So when you look at what it takes to staff a hybrid model, in the elementary school, because we had to decrease the student section sizes to keep us at the 50% capacity and to allow social distancing, we had to add staff into that model. So we have some long-term substitutes that are in that position, and we have to give a shout out to our specialists. So when I look at our interventionists and our phy-ed teachers and our music teachers, they are the ones that are jumping in and creating some of those additional sections in order to have that and be able to bring every elementary student in person. In addition, we have over 1,100 students in distance learning. So on top of that, besides having to have all the in-person staffing, we've had to create learning cohorts and staff the distance learning cohorts. And so that is taking a tremendous amount. We have provided courtesy care when you look at things that have to happen to support students on that shortened day. Time between when school ends and activities start. We still have to provide staffing for emergency childcare. So those emergency childcare workers in the 6th through 8th grade, that all takes staff. And the minute one staff gets ill, or one staff member might have a family member that's being tested, they all quarantine, that takes staffing away. So Angie, Tim, and I, we did a substitute training day during teacher workshop week that Thursday. We've been recruiting those subs in. We have a great group of subs. But I think if anything takes this model down, it's not going to be our county numbers. It's going to be the ability to staff and keep staff in front of our students in order to have high levels of learning and to have that security that we need when we're monitoring and supervising them. So that is going to be our continued challenge. We are actively seeking substitutes. Norby's going to talk about that in transportation. It's not a problem, like Tim said, there's not a problem we cannot solve, but it's having the resource to solve that problem and the time to do that. We're not necessarily, again, after school supervision. We've allowed courtesy care because of that shortened day, but we have a gap between activities and when sports will start and activities after school start. Again, it's having the staff to supervise those students and the availability of that staff. We've had lots of enrollment fluctuation and tracking that. As some parents said, they'd come in person, but now they want distance. Or they wanted distance, now they want to come in person. And when you look at nearly 7,000 students in a system, that's a lot of tracking, documentation, assigning into cohorts, dividing schedules if you're an A schedule or a B schedule, monitoring that, making sure families are together, siblings are together. So hours and hours and hours of work. Anytime there's one change, it automatically has a ripple effect into transportation or into food service. So having to communicate with that. We have parents really frustrated. In order to keep our buses at 50% capacity, we were not able to honor the split household bus card like we used to. We used to issue children with split households 2 bus cards. And for many families that have multiple siblings, we're not able to do that at this time because we can't count on a seat being empty when we need to keep a bus at 50% capacity. Have taken a myriad of phone calls from families who really want to have, 4 bus cards rather than just 2. And we're trying to do our best when we can accommodate, we're accommodating, but that's been a significant frustration for our family. Meal delivery, I'm not going to touch because we're going to have food service touch on that. I can tell you right now, I am the student COVID tracker, and Angie's kind of doing the staff. And anytime a parent calls in and says they have a symptom or anything like that, we're recording. Then we're making contact. We're making contact with how many siblings are there. We're finding out when they go to their healthcare provider. We're waiting for what that healthcare provider information has to say to us. That's a full-time job at this point. My days and my weekends are spent at this point the last 2 weeks taking that information and really then working with our regional response team and now also working with the Minnesota Department of Health. I can tell you that's a highlight. They're very responsive. The Department of Health gets back to us within 24 hours. As a matter of fact, today I got a call back within 2 hours. So very quick to get us that information. But the minute information comes out, like we had today at Forest View, again, the phone calls that are coming in, the questions, the anxiety, so getting that communication out and having that. So that's a challenge. It's not a problem we can't solve. But again, it's time and the resources to do it. Mental health of our staff and students, as much as it's improving, because we're finally back doing what we love to do, it's also a struggle because of all the facets and the changes that are having to occur. And I think the biggest challenge that's going to lie ahead of us is, as we get further into this, is really looking at, as another positive case comes or as cases come, what are the decisions we're going to be making to respond to those cases and to ensure that our students and our staff are safe.
From the teaching and learning side of the line, one of our biggest challenges has been getting each and every student full access to both technology and to curriculum as quickly as possible. It's a challenge under a regular year to make sure that by really the second day of school, your class roster is final, it's your class roster, and that any specialized form of curriculum or piece of curriculum that might be digital in its nature is linked to that class so students have access to it. This year, it's been far more complicated than in any other year I've ever seen. And that normal process of enrollment, placement or rostering, and then linking curriculum to the rosters is supported by the fact that kids enroll, they're with us, and the longer they're with us, the faster that goes. So if we start tinkering at that end of that pipeline, it creates a lot of wave effect throughout, that there are going to be some choke points to that. So there were a couple times in the first parts of last week where we did not have all the curriculum resources linked to the classrooms that had been created, partly because families were still making changes. They were in, they're out, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. There were families who were coming to us, families are going out. Unfortunately, when you look at what the variables are to solve the problem, the variable, there are three variables. It's going to be, money, time, and staff. In the case of student information service support, which is Ms. Pica's responsibility, there's no way that I could even find another staff member who could do, another person in the world who can do that. It's such a specific system on the short term. So we need to pull things away, allow Michelle to work through those challenges. Again, there's no problem there she cannot solve. They're just more than what she can do at the moment. So there's a couple pieces still hanging out there that we need to get linked in. We made a decision in June that was based on what we learned in the spring, that ironically, and I'm going to own this, did not move us forward. We made a decision about how we automate rostering and linking rosters to certain specific curriculum pieces. When we went to the hybrid model that we created, when we now have multiple teachers who are assigned to multiple buildings, all pulling kids from multiple sites, Skyward did not like that. And it made it almost impossible to do a batch upload where flip a switch, things get rostered, which is ultimately what you're trying to work towards. There are some areas we're just going to have to hand roster ourselves. Okay, just the limitations of some of the technology that, again, you just don't know until we're asking systems to do things they were not designed to do. So the decision to automate, which we thought would have helped us tremendously if we'd had that capacity in the spring, ended up actually getting in the way. We're going to have to de-automate a few things and do that by hand. So there are going to be a couple pieces that are not done. That's a challenge, but it's a solvable one. It just needs a little bit more time, and it needs me to pull some other work off Michelle's plate so that she can focus on that and that Sue Anderson can support her. Because there's no way to bring in a sub from the outside with the technical expertise to do that, because these systems are highly tailored to just the district. That's the number one. I do want to take a moment to address some of the concerns that have come from families around the resource center at Forest View for fifth grade. Some of the concerns are that this isn't really learning, this is just daycare. And I don't feel that where we stand right now, that is a legitimate criticism. I understand where it came from, and I understand why I might view it. I also understand that it might be through the view of a 12-year-old. The first couple days, I want you guys to imagine for a moment, day one, Tuesday. You have over 200 students. It is their first day of school in a new school building. They're in the cafeteria. They've received no instruction yet. There were activities planned. There was work for them to do in terms of, let's get you your technology, let's get you signed in, and there were some technical hiccups with that. We had a batch of passwords and usernames that did not work. We still don't know why. It fixed now, but that day, but. And if you ever worked with a large group of kids, installing protocols and routines takes time. And you're going to have to live with some chaos for a day or two until that gets set. I was a high school teacher for 20-plus years. It took 3 or 4, sometimes 5, depending on the group of kids, to get routines and protocols down in my classroom for 35 to 50 kids. That's how many I taught in a classroom in a given year. Let's do that for 200. The fact that by Friday, when I went and sat for a half hour in the cafeteria, and what did I see? I saw kids working independently. I saw kids raising their hand and asking a professional to come help them. I saw small groups who were socially distanced working with a professional on work. Once the teachers got a chance to push content out to them, have them in class, and then push them out and have them work independently, but supported by the resources of the Learning Center. It was an amazing thing to watch. It was not perfect Tuesday and Wednesday, far from it. It was chaos. 200 fifth graders. Close your eyes, imagine that. All the excitement of day one, all the excitement of end of summer, haven't even been in school in 6 months. And for the teachers and the staff to get that to functioning at a very high level by Friday was truly impressive. Now, there are still some pieces they're going to implement. It's like anything else with procedures and routines. You're not just doing everything on day one. Okay, the independent reading structures. Some of the demonstration lab experiments that they'll have there, those are coming. The possibility in some situations of the kids to stream into the classroom if it's instructionally appropriate to do them will be there. We had a lot of headaches the first couple days, but we brought it very far. I met with Ms. West, Ms. Wigg, and got their feedback on this after I did my observations, and they were so proud of the work that they had done, and they had worked very hard. They understood and they agreed that this isn't ideal, it's not what we want, but again, it's successful. We're doing things well, and it's getting better. The ultimate success of Friday is the fact that it proves that we can solve problems, that we're not quitters. It proves that we're committed to refining what we do. It may look completely different by Christmas. If it does, it'll be even better than it already is. And that's the nature of the work that we're doing right now. Yeah. And I just wanted to put that, because I know that is a source of concern for families. We got the calls.
And the other piece too, if you think about when a student shows up in person, they're getting their materials, they're getting their textbooks, they're getting their math manipulatives. When we look at basically creating another whole-size elementary school of distance learners, that's what happened today, was all that material pickup. So when you think about organizing a kindergarten, first grade through fourth grade learning cohort of kids from 6 different elementaries and having to round up all those materials, bring them into WESBA, then get them grouped over to go back out. In a short period of time, staff have been amazing. So distribution of that happened today. Parents picked up, and that's going to be another continuing challenge that we have, because we have enough through September, but now we have to continue with our curriculum. So not only do we get it ready in person, we're also having to get it ready and get out to our families that have chosen distance learning.
I have a quick comment, is 2 comments actually. First one is, I picked up my son Chayton from school today. He's in 4th grade. And on the way home, now granted I don't live terribly far away from the school, but he chuckled as we were getting out of the car at our house, because he sat and told me about his day. He told me about the excitement of the friends he's meeting and how much he loves his new teacher. But he noticed when he got out of the vehicle that he still had his mask on. And I don't think the mask is a big issue to my son, at least my son. But and he's a very outgoing kid, and he expresses himself through his face. So one of his major tools has more or less been taken away, but he seems to have moved on, and I'm excited about that. The one thing I wanted to talk about is my daughter is in 5th grade, and she's one of the constituencies that you talked about. What you need to know, and you already know this, but it's important for this to be said, is that my daughter's a self-starter. She's smart, very social. She loved her first day of school. It's a little bit clunky, I'll admit, but she's resilient. Her friends are resilient. They're very trusting of the teachers that are around them, and I don't think they're overly concerned. At least my daughter isn't. She's confident that she's going to get something out of this year academically, and she's excited to move forward. My main concern moving forward from this week is I don't question for a second that the faculty, staff, administration is putting their best foot forward, especially as it relates to 5th grade. It's really important that you know that about our children, that they trust you, but also from where I sit, I trust you all completely with this, and I'm so excited to see the hard work. My only concern is trust. We want to make sure that we're transparent, and we want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward as it relates to trust. And I think as it relates to what went on this past week with the 5th grade, I don't believe that you burned trust. I don't. But I think that moving forward, my encouragement would be that we continue to push with communication. The concerns that I heard wasn't as much about that what didn't happen to the classroom. It was more about, well, we didn't know about that, or that wasn't really explained. And that's all right, because I know a lot of this is coming at even the administration and faculty pretty quickly. And I don't think you're going to burn trust from that. I think where trust comes into question would be if communication, and like what you're all doing right here, doesn't persist in the weeks coming. And I just really encourage you all to, I'm not sure what the plan is. I don't have all the answers, but that we move forward with making sure that the parents are fully equipped and fully aware of what curveballs might be ahead. It's not the curveballs that I'm concerned about. I don't believe that the parents are concerned about the curveballs, but they would just like to know. And again, I applaud you all for your hard work, but just moving forward, I really encourage us to make sure that we have a way. I don't know if it's a newsletter or if it's a site on a website where parents can be made aware of this, but it's a fast-moving process. I know that. But we need to be able to keep our parents a little bit ahead of that curve. And I think if that happens, I don't think we're going to necessarily hemorrhage that much trust. And I think we could even surge forward and gain a lot of trust with this. And I'm so appreciative, again, of the experience my daughter had this week. And you know, it's this very type of situation that we want our children, my wife and I, to go through, because it's going to make them stronger. It's going to make them understand that education isn't something that is just guaranteed to them. They need to fight for it too. They need to work for that as well. And hopefully all our children are going to learn through this. This is something that they need to own, even at a young age. And I know my children are up for that task, and I believe all children in our district are up to that task. And we just need to make sure that we're continuing to communicate. I think that's where the issue may have laid for many on this past week.
That's fair.
Yep, and I know Principal Anderson has drafted a letter to the 5th grade family in particular to kind of give the highlights of what happened and what's going to continue to happen, so I know he's looking to get that out. Our elementary principals have put together their e-newsletters, which is happening for both in-person and distance. And we had a very unique request from one of our distance learning teachers, even something as simple as the flyers that go home. Okay, well, if I'm not an in-person learner, I'm not getting the flyer. So coming up now with a system of where we're scanning those flyers in and making sure our distance learners are getting the access to that information. So all those finite details, I agree with you that communication will be our key. We sometimes struggle, are we over communicating? But we've talked about in situations like this, we don't think we can over communicate. And we've also encouraged parents, if you have a question, call. And we've taken hundreds of phone calls from parents, tried to address each of those individually, and we continue to update if it's something that we think systematically, we'll continue to put on that frequently asked questions document, so all parents have access to that too. But thank you for that insight.
And I appreciate that too, and honestly, that's why we're here tonight to talk about, because so often we'll come and we'll talk about all the really good things that are happening, but there are a lot of challenges here too that might impact some of the decisions we have to make along the way. And so we really want to get the word out just so people know what the challenges are that we might have to deal with, and so that we're all better prepared, and it's not going to be a big shock if we have to change models or whatever for some reason, and so I appreciate that. So, yeah.
Yep. So going on to the next. So just to give you an update really regarding our cases, again, this is our Crow Wing County chart that we've been operating on the guidance. Our last information that came from Michelle as of last Friday, Michelle Moritz is our Public Health County Supervisor. So as you can see, we took a pretty significant jump from the 6.1 to the 9.87. That's a September 5th. We'll have our next numbers coming up, which they anticipate will be a higher spike. This is again following the guidelines that they gave us all the way back to when we were in August 4th recommending that hybrid. We'll continue to monitor this. The interesting thing that she's provided to us now is really that case count by age. That's the chart that you're seeing over to the right. If you really want to see the high numbers that are coming, it's not our elderly population. It's in our 19 to 29 and our 30 to 39. Now, we're all saying that's not school age, but guess what? That's the parent and that's the staff. And so when we talk about some of the staffing concerns and things like that, again, if a parent's being tested, their whole family needs to quarantine until those test results are done. That's also reported to us as a school system. That's the trend we're starting to really see happen this last week, is as we start to get that. It's not the kids as much. I mean, we have a couple that are up in the secondary level that we're monitoring. It's really the parents of those children, and it's the teaching staff. So it's our older population, but those are the higher cases. And so that's the population that's having an impact when we look at staffing. And I was going to do this with Angie. You know, our highlights again that we're going to talk about with the staffing, staff are doing everything they can. I used to say 90% of staff do what they need to do all the time. I'm going to say 96% of our staff are doing what they need to do all the time and going above and beyond. We have substitutes that are super dedicated, that they continue to come in and be flexible. We have long-term subs that we've put in place all the way through November 25th, which is the end of our first academic term, trying to ensure that we have some of that flexibility. So again, when we have a staff member that has to go out, or a paraprofessional or a cook, we have somebody automatically in that building that can slide in. We kind of have developed that contingency plan. We've stretched that contingency plan already our first week in operation, moving into our second week. Our continued challenges, staffing that hybrid model, like I discussed earlier. And what's impacting that is the testing and the quarantine periods that exist. And right now, given how we've created that hybrid model, if we start to have peaks where more staff go out, you know, our concern is it might be unsustainable. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a county number that's going to say we all have to go distance learning. I think it's really going to be some of those staffing issues. And some of the challenges we have ahead of us is, in particular, if we have a certain positive case, depending on that contact, and again, right now we're seeing it in the adults, not in the children, but it can impact a certain team or a grade level or things like that that may need to go into distance learning. So if I have a second grade teacher, right, and somebody in their household tests positive, they'll get quarantined, we'll get a sub, but if that second grade teacher tests positive, now I'm looking at that second grade cohort having to go out for distance learning. And that's what we're preparing for. And I think as I've talked to parents, that's what they're anxious for too. Like, it's not if it's gonna happen, it's when it's gonna happen and where it's gonna happen. So trying to put all those contingency plans in place. You as a board were very proactive in giving approval to hire a COVID coordinator. Thank you. Now the goal is we have to find one. Angie and I are doing the best we can. But it would be very nice to have somebody with that nursing background and that professional background that talks to the Department of Health on a regular basis in public health. I know Superintendent Larson did interviews Friday and again today. So we're anxious because it is an all-consuming position of having to document and communicate. So that's a continued challenge we have.
And even with that, many of the candidates that are interested in the position can't begin for 30 days. And so for 30 days, there's at least 2 full-time people that are working, just taking care of the information regarding COVID that have full-time jobs here already, and they're just adding this onto their plate. And so when you see some of this about that some of the work thing requirements right now are unsustainable, they just really are, because it's just that much work. But we're trying.
So, and again, then the biggest concern we continue to monitor is budget. So you're going to get an enrollment update that's going to tell you where we're at with our student enrollment. But on top of that, we're having to staff some pieces. Like we've talked about those learning cohorts in elementary, looking at the subs. The nice thing is we have some relief, COVID relief dollars that are helping that, but those end in December. So the question too of how long do we have to do this? How many subs are we bringing in, and the impact that's going to have on overall budget. So it's something we're watching daily. So Sue Anderson gives us a daily update of our student enrollment, our numbers. And again, that constant tide of in-person to distance. When you look at the sheer number of kids that are doing distance learning, the taxing that's putting on existing staff to crosswalk both our 6th through 12th grade staff, they're managing every kid in person and distance. Now add special education on top of that. So I'm the special education teacher and I have these kids in person, but I have these kids in distance learning. And I'm a special education teacher that goes across multiple grade levels and multiple content areas. Those challenges continue to spiral. So trying to find the right supports and create more collective efficacy with our special education support staff as well. Okay, go to the next one. Oh, I think Tim and I are finally done. I think, unless you have questions for it. Because we'll be happy to answer them.
We spent the greatest amount of time today talking about the hybrid model, because everything that everybody else is going to talk about impacts the hybrid model and what we do between the 3 models. And so the next presentations won't be as lengthy, but the core of this is what model are we providing our children? How are we making sure they're getting high quality instruction? And how are we meeting their educational needs? And so everything that we're talking about impacts that hybrid model that you guys were just showcasing.
Correct. So let's say we get to go, here's the challenge that we also need to still work through. We finally get to go 100% in person. But we still have 1,100 children who are choosing distance learning. So now we have to fully operate in person, which when you look at the music teacher, the Phi Ed teacher, the title teacher, the interventionist, who we've now spread out to help support some of our distance learning. And you look at the 6th through 12th grade staff who are doing that distance learning, and we've guaranteed them time in their day to be able to do that distance learning. When you pull the switch back on to 100% in-person learning, we still have a responsibility to our 1,100+ students that have chosen distance learning. So that is also a significant challenge, because right now the governor's order is still allowing that choice. So we as a system have to continue to figure out that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much again for your input and for sharing this with us. And I just want to encourage you that I appreciate all that you've done as a parent here with my kids in the middle of what's going on. And finally, I guess with education, turbulence is always to be expected. And for many, myself included, the scary part is in between, or that period between when the bump occurs and when the pilot gets on the intercom and explains what happened. So keep explaining, and we'll be right there behind you.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Norrie.
So I think one of the things I didn't put up there for a highlight was seeing the black and yellow buses going all around town in the morning and the evenings. I noticed that coming in, actually on that first day there, that sitting in the office watching them go by and stuff. That was pretty good, but that changed. So another highlight is our new shuttle location that designed last year, because we couldn't do any shuttling on the top anymore up by the high school. And so we were basically forced to find a new place to do that would work efficiently and safely. And we ended up down in the lower lot down there, and there was always questioning whether it would work. It did work before, will it work again? And it's set up, and it seems to be working really well. We're able to provide that flexibility that we were looking for and as directed to do so that we could service all the schools, so that if a student started in one elementary and then they moved to another boundary area, that we would be able to continue to provide that service to them. And we were able to do that now with that flexibility and do it pretty timely. Before we could do it, but it always was a time crunch, or we'd had to run a bus out of the regular route, and it was just wasn't working well. So that seems to be up and running really well. One of the other highlights is we found out our neighbors, they really want to help us out too when things are challenging. For instance, Bemidji, they sent drivers down that first week because they didn't have school to help us out. And then even this last week, CI Crosby, they have Josh and his dad actually came over and helped drive for us. So thanks to them. And I know Pillager and Staples, they were both, if they would have had extra, they would have, but they're cut so thin there too. So everybody's, that's kind of a nationwide thing with the bus drivers, and how this all kind of adds into it. So.
But Norby, you need to give yourself credit too, because you're driving as well.
Yeah.
As well as LC and
Yep.
Mike
that's
are all driving, and so everybody's driving, and we absolutely cannot find bus drivers.
Yeah.
This is really a very scary thing, the transportation piece of this.
Yeah. But we did find out that the communication with our contractor, Reichert's there, that's come around really well. We're able to have emergency meetings, Saturdays, Sundays, whatever it takes. They're willing to work with us and come up with brainstorming ideas of how to have success here and do things safely. Now we'll just jump right into the challenges right away, because that's what everybody's aware of is the shortage of drivers, and that's always been nationwide. And this year with this pandemic, it didn't help us at all. Matter of fact, 22 of our contractors' drivers did not come back this year. 11 they figured was COVID related, and 13 of their new hires that they thought were going to be going through, they just didn't want to complete their training and haven't yet. Maybe some they're still working on. They're going to try to get them to come through, but they just haven't come through. So that's a lot of staff for 80-some drivers, and 22 don't come back. So trying to fill that void is really challenging. They have all qualified office staff out. Well, we do too. Like I said, I was out in a bus this morning and this evening and tomorrow morning. But we're pulling a lot of office staff, and Reichert's pulling people out of their shop. So that's all our backup stuff. We problem solve all the time, but we're getting pretty deep into the batting order with this. And now we had meetings last Thursday and Friday. Problem solve, what can we do to alleviate some of these? And that would be to get more type 3 drivers, possibility of doing that, and then having the vehicle. So them are two challenges there too that we're looking for. To get the drivers in is kind of the main thing, but once we get the drivers in, then it goes on to the equipment. So one thing always affects another. That would help out our special education, transportation, and needs for the paraprofessionals on the routes. So then we run into that because we have to have a para on the route, and they're just not available. They're not coming through the door. We advertise for them, but that's kind of been an ongoing thing. And of course, this pandemic's not helping that out any. It's getting more challenging. And then I think Heidi touched a little bit on the dual households. As much as we want to service them both, I think that's kind of been the biggest hardship for some of our families. Mm-hmm. We have about 300 of them that like to use that service to both residencies, and we decided, in order to control our bus loads and try to get a better handle on that we would just go with one for now and open that up possibly later once we figure out what our actual ridership is, which it's another challenge to figure out the exact number of people that are riding all the time. Some will take that bus service or that card, and then maybe they won't ride, or they'll just ride sporadically. So some of the buses are running light, and other ones are running a little heavier. We're actually scheduled to run about 34 students per bus load, but there's some of them that are not that full by far, and some that are pushing that. So it's tough to get an actual number on that when they sign up for it, but then they don't ride for whatever various reasons. They're all legit, but and that would be meeting that 50% requirement for safety on our buses, and and that's challenging with them kind of numbers that we're trying to transport. So then we end up trying to where we can tuck it in different places. And then lack of administrative staff to address these needs and challenges. That's pulling people out of the office and such, and that just puts more work on them. Usually every year we have quite a few changes. I know the first year it came by the time we hit October, we had close to 1,200 changes. We're at 800 changes that we've made already, and that's just like in a couple weeks. So I think we're going to be going over that. There's plenty that they're processing now. Not of them all are drastic changes, but they're changes that you have to touch and go on with. But and then our final one there is monitoring our ridership, and there's that's something I've been looking at is getting some software. It's out there. I mean, the technology is out there to get this stuff, but that all comes with a price tag again, but that would have really come in handy through this, and we're finding out some stuff that the software works good for, and whatever plan that we would need it for this specific stuff. So it's something that we got to look into heavily probably in the future, and that would help us out with our bus loads. But we're doing it on paper right now. So, and that's all of day's work.
Norby, a couple questions on the 50% capacity.
Yep.
Does that mean that is it like every other bus seat is vacant then, or how do you accommodate?
Correct. They have, not every other bus seat is vacant. The guidelines are that we should say 50% capacity. They understand that you can't maintain a 6-foot spacing, so they want you to do the best that you can. So they do have a seating pattern in there. It's 1, 2, 1, 2 all the way through the bus, and that's the recommendations from MD there.
And if there's households that are,
Correct.
2 or 3, are they allowed to sit together?
Siblings can sit together. Yep.
But is that part of the 50% yet then, or can you go?
You could go over then. Yep.
Right. So the shortage of drivers is because we have more routes essentially.
Well, we're running the same routes. We actually have quite a few less. I mean, we have approximately 50% of our people that are riding from last year. There's a lot of them that are driving, and we encourage that. If we had our full capacity, or our full ridership that we have on a normal running, we would never be able to hold that 50%.
Okay. So the shortage is more due just to the national. I mean, it's been a downward trend of finding drivers, and this is probably added to it for fear.
Correct.
For drivers.
Yeah, we're thankful that we don't have that many riders right now, because we'd never be able to service them because we're short-staffed just running with our regular.
Well, and another thing they talked about last week when we met is that the Brainerd office has closed to get people permitted so that they can be drivers for buses too. And so those 13 that they thought they had hired that could go through the permitting and the licensing situation, they would have to go to St. Cloud, Bemidji, or Grand Rapids in which to do that. And nobody has completed that because it isn't accessible here in Brainerd. So
They closed temporarily or what?
Well, I think temporary. I guess I'm not aware when they are gonna open again, but
Yeah, students
for
are
now.
having to go to like Detroit Lakes and St. Cloud to test,
St. Cloud.
Yeah.
just for the regular
Bemidji
traffic.
That's a
has it or
big
something,
problem.
too,
It's a
so.
huge problem, and so all of these things just keep kind of compounding, and so it's like, just, so you can, some of the
Yeah.
challenge that these guys are dealing with every day.
I don't know how we would do this, but it'd be nice at least if they could like take someone from Bemidji that does the training and testing and bring them here one day a week or something, so we could get some people through that.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
they're working feverishly on that, trying to get a hold of somebody to even get them to open something up, or a mobile one, or any type
Yeah.
of testing that we could get going, so they just have not helped the.
Mark
the-
and
the
Mike
busing out.
even talked the other day about bringing the people to Bemidji or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
to do the testing along with the bus in order to do the, what, if it's just written permit testing or whatever, that's all they'd have to do, but just to give them that access to those communities. But it's just a day off of work or whatever they're doing,
Yeah.
to go there and even get the permit.
Yeah.
And then they have a month before they can get licensed. And even though they've lightened up the restrictions on that, all 13 candidates that they had, none of them have completed.
Is
So
there-
this is a big one for us, this transportation piece, because they've already taken several routes, put them together, so that they have different routes now, just because we don't have enough drivers for the buses.
I don't understand all the facets, and I don't necessarily need to in terms of getting these bus drivers licensed and trained, or at least coached up. But, and I'm sure there are some realities to this, and this might be a bit of a conflict of interest on some levels, but has there been any thought or discussion with Central Lakes College and some of their heavy equipment? I know that they do a certain amount of training over there for when we have our own buses. There was a time where we could go over there. Different buses, of course, I understand, but that's right in our backyard, and is there a way
Yeah.
that we could partner with them?
Yeah, I can check into that more. I know Staples CLC, they had a truck driving course over
Yep.
there and different things, so
Mhm.
I'll let Mike and Mark know to check into that, and I believe they probably have.
That's
I
a
can
good
check.
idea, actually.
Yeah, yep,
Something we
good
haven't,
idea.
we've been throwing around every idea that we
Yeah.
can possibly come up with, and every time you come up with an idea, oh, we've already done that, we've already tried that, and so that's a great one, because we haven't discussed that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Norby. Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work and for driving those buses.
I'm next. Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, so highlights and challenges with technology right now. Overall, things are going awesome because like they always do. We have an amazing team, amazing staff, and amazing families and students that just keep everything moving. So, but I wanted to highlight some things here for you. So, highlights right now. Every student in grades 2 through 12 have a device assigned to them. If you remember, though, in June, you approved K through 12, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of our challenges. All technology is on back order. All shipping is caught up. Our tablets for K and 1, I just talked to my vendor again on Friday. It's at customs. They know it's there. They just can't get it through right now. So our tablets are there. All of our classroom microphones that you approved, that's all back ordered. Some of the upgraded cameras that some of our teachers are waiting for, back ordered. So we're really struggling with that. We're struggling with getting the equipment in that we have ordered. So the good news is we have old devices that we can deploy for K and 1 if we have to go distance learning for them. However, again, the challenge with that is that if we need to use the older devices, that comes with, number one, they're not developmentally appropriate for K1. That's why we order the tablets and not a keyboard device, right? And then two, every time that we need to use older devices, the more stress that puts on our team, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but the more that our technicians are supporting those older devices and trying to keep them up and running the way that they should be. So So that's where we're kind of at with devices right now. Another highlight though is working with CTC and T-Mobile. We've been really able to facilitate internet access to the majority of our families. Now, this is something that I truly believe our district really should be proud of. I talk to districts all over the state. Continues to be something that most districts really struggle with, and we are really doing well in this area. With that being said, now that some families are really getting into the distance learning, and we're doing Google Meets, and we're doing this live streaming and all of these different things, we do have a couple households that they just don't have access. We are putting hotspots out there. We've tried lots of different things in their home, and because of where their home is located, they just don't have the adequate access. They have some access, but they don't have the adequate access that we want for our students. And so then we work with, the next step is to work with principals and find out how do we get these students on our network somehow, and what do we do next. So, but like I said, that's only so far. I've had 3 households get a hold of me in that situation. So if you consider how many we have, that's still we're doing pretty good there. We have amazing staff. They're asking questions, they're being flexible as we move through this. And not just the staff, but the students and the families as well. I have always been about taking risks, growth mindset, and all of that, and we've always been trying to push that since day one. And it's really showing now, and it's very exciting to see our families and students and staff with that growth mindset and understanding that it doesn't always work, and we have to try something different and grow together. So those are some of the highlights. I think besides the equipment piece, our other biggest challenge is the team. And you all have brought this up to me before when we were talking about going one-to-one, the concern about our small team. Well, that has been expounded now. I would say that if we were in a traditional in-person one-to-one and everyone was in school and everything, our team would be doing just fine. Fortunately, that's not the case right now. And so not only are we supporting 1,500 staff, 6,500 students, but we're supporting other families as well. We just got a help desk ticket about 2 hours ago from a student that was concerned about an educator. They were assigned to meet with them today, and that one of our support staff didn't make it to the meeting. So the student emailed the help desk concerned about them and wanted us to check on them. And so that's just it's an interesting thing of what our technology team is now dealing with. So not only technical issues, but concerns and kind of routing all of these things. So there's 8 of us total. Tim talked about Michelle Pica. So we share Michelle Pica between teaching and learning and technology. And she's our bridge, and she does amazing. Well, usually our team can utilize her to help with those password resets and different things within Skyward, again, that is pretty specific to Skyward. That was not the case. Poor Michelle was pulled every direction this year between rostering and all of those other things. Another example of this is Ryan, our network administrator. Generally, he can help with some of those the tickets that come in with technical type things. But with construction, he has been all network admin with construction, hanging access points and running wires and making sure things are working. So there's another support person that we have been down during this time. So not only do we have this influx of devices, this influx of everyone using the software, which is awesome, and trying new things, but the struggle of supporting all of them is very difficult. So technically we have 4 technicians, and that would mean that each one of our technicians is supporting 2,000 users in our system. And a quick research shows that an average business high end is 150 users per technician. Not to say that we can even get close to that, nor do we need to get close to that. I don't feel like it, but just to give you kind of an idea of the stress. And so we've said throughout the presentation here, we're doing it. It's just unsustainable. Our team we're tired, so just along with everyone else, but it's pretty unsustainable, the amount of work that's been going on for really, I would say, at least 3 weeks, if not the 5 weeks that Mr. Murtha has talked about with the specific, I would say with the help desk tickets and everything else going on. So that's where we're at overall. So kind of like Tim said, nothing that we can't solve, nothing that, we're making it work, just that there's challenges there as well.
Sarah, you mentioned the problems with customs. Is it China is that where the stuff is being made?
I guess I don't know of specifics on why.
Okay.
I know last spring it was because of the new sanitization rules, and I think that has a lot to do with it still, that all shipments have to be sanitized in a different way. And so, the lack of workers in doing these things, plus the added work that they're doing as well, is really slowing things down. The other thing is, I had got a hold of a few vendors, and I said, okay, what's the likelihood of getting 100 more touch Chromebooks? And I got laughed right out of the email. They're like, yeah, right, there's nothing available till at least January or February in a touch Chromebook right now. So because we ordered ours in June, thank goodness we got ours, and because we ordered our tablets in June, thank goodness they're on their way, but there's just nothing available for laptops, Chromebooks, document cameras, nothing.
So I don't even know how to ask this, but I'm going to try here. So
Sure.
You're saying the workload is unsustainable, and I can see that from what you said and everything like that. How much of that workload is due to being the beginning of school versus how much of that workload is going to be ongoing? So ongoing, long-term, is it still an unsustainable workload?
It will be interesting to see how this goes. We've never had a hybrid model like this before with students distance learning as well. Right now, because it is the beginning of the school year, of course, there's a lot more going on. But I anticipate as long as we are in this model with students, with our 1,100 online, distance learners as well, it's gonna continue to be unsustainable.
Okay.
When we come back to school, and we can be all in person and everything's good again, it will still look different because of the good things that are coming out of this, because of the software that's being used now and the different ways that people are using technology. So it still we'll still have added need from before, but right now it's just the immediate.
And we might always have some distance learning, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? That's the thing. Yeah, it's really hard to know, to predict.
And Ryan, with his workload with the buildings changing, that'll go away eventually,
Correct.
right?
It's just kind of the perfect storm, but wonderful things happening, right? But yeah, just a lot of things happening all at once. Another instance of that is smart boards had to get hung before teachers came in, and buildings and grounds were awesome, and they helped us out. So we had one of our techs, they'd hang them up, and then our tech would go through and wire them all in, and we got that done in 4 days in the new buildings. So, but again, that's a lot of extra pressure on people.
Yes. Yeah, well, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let us know if you need Bob and I to head over to customs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you should get
I
on
thought you were
that.
going to help with the technology.
Yeah, that too.
Bob would be really good.
Technology.
We could be a bus driver.
Bus drivers
Yeah.
could do that.
Alyssa.
All right, hello. Okay, so I have some highlights and I have some challenges, and some of my highlights are my challenges. So we'll talk through that. My first highlight is free meals are available to all children 18 and under until December 31st or until funding runs out. So last spring, we ran SFSP for distance learning. So that is our summer meals program. And this fall, we found out 4 days before school started that the government was going to fund meals through December 31st. So it's amazing, and we're super excited that every kid has the opportunity to eat breakfast and lunch with us. No matter if they're distance learning, in person, hybrid, they can get a free meal. So it's super exciting. However, it's been kind of a challenge to shift immediately, right before school starts. So we've been working through that. I do have an amazing staff. Our food service staff has adapted to all of the meal service changes. So they're delivering meals to classrooms, they're serving all the food, there's tons of point of sale changes, and they're also providing meal kits. So they've been amazing. On Wednesday this week, we are starting our 5-day meal kits, and they are available from 10 to 12 at Forest View. And we have about 500 made. So 500 kits go out, so 500 times 5 days worth is a lot of food going out The last really big highlight for us is that 4 of our elementary schools were awarded the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Snack Grant. It's the first time in 5 years, I've been applying for 5 years, that we've had 4 get that. So we're super, super excited about that. Some of our challenges, and this will touch kind of base what Sarah was saying, is that our touchless transactions have been a problem. So I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of last week, I was IT. And I was at every single building, including our charter school and our private school, because we are in a joint agreement, working on lunch cards and barcode scanners and point of sale registers and Skyward. It's been a work in progress. Sandy, my assistant, has probably reprinted over 1,000 lunch cards, and we're still working through that. So it's been really, really kind of a struggle. The next piece is, unfortunately, we have food shortages, and very, very short notice. So Upper Lakes is our distributor. They let us know last week that they will no longer be delivering on Wednesdays. So we went from a 2-day a week delivery, to a 1-day a week delivery, which means that Buildings and Grounds and Alyssa Thompson has been delivering food every day since the beginning of school, because we can't get our second truck, which means our delivery guys and myself are delivering food. I delivered 15 boxes of snacks today. So it's going to be interesting this school year. Also, our commodity goods aren't coming in like they should. So normally I would have 1,000 strawberry cups, thousands of pounds of beef, thousands of pounds of turkey. I got 4 cases of strawberry cups last week. I got 12 cases of hamburgers. So we're starting to think about what we have in our warehouse and making some menu changes. And also, we were told by the USDA that they will up the price of our goods, our commodity goods that we did a survey on in March. So if I ordered 96 cases of strawberry cups and the pandemic happened, the USDA is going to come back and raise the price of those strawberry cups because the availability isn't there, which means I'm not going to get what I surveyed. So we're starting to think about what we're getting, when we're getting it, and how we're going to make a menu, especially with a one day a week delivery. Some of our vendors, I will say, have come through for us. So we have Bix Produce. They took on my apples, and they didn't have to. That's a USDA allotment. They don't even touch USDA foods. I called them up, and they were like, absolutely, we'll drop your apples for you. They didn't have to do that. So they stepped up. Kemp's has stepped up in a huge way on Wednesday when we do our meal kits. They're providing a half a gallon of milk instead of 10 pints or half pints. They're providing me with a half a gallon of orange juice instead of 10 juice boxes. So I have some vendors that are like absolutely coming through, others that are struggling. And so that leads right into menu and storage concerns. Our warehouse is full of food that might not be the right food. We have 130,000 pounds of turkey roast. Can't slice it for sandwich meat, but you can make turkey gravy. We're not going to serve turkey gravy in a classroom. So we're trying to come up with ways to use the food that we have in a way that makes sense. I purchased 30,000 pounds of French fries last February for this school year. What am I going to do with 30,000 pounds of French fries? So we're trying to figure out what we can do with the space that we have and the food that we have to make sure that kids are getting the right food in the right way. So those are some of the situations that we're working through. My team has been amazing. We're going to do 1 week of ready-to-eat meal kits. This week is going to be ready-to-eat. The next week we're thinking about doing frozen meal kits because we have that type of product and we can do that. So we're trying to come through with ways that it's easy for staff to serve, to prepare, to kit up, but also is great for a parent or a student to pop it in the microwave. So we're not going to ask anyone to make turkey gravy. We're not going to give them a 30-pound turkey roast, but we are going to try and figure out ways to use the food that we have. That's it. Any questions?
Alyssa, if Upper Lakes was supposed to deliver 2 days a week, aren't they under contract?
No, it's not contracted for delivery days. So they're guaranteed to provide us with a delivery day, but they aren't guaranteed to deliver us on Monday and Wednesday. So what they're doing is they're doing all Mondays, and then in an emergency on a Friday. Getting food on a Friday, frankly, does me no good, because that would be food for the next week. Wednesday has always been our day if we've run out of pancakes, or if we're running short on something, that we can order it in and it's guaranteed for a Thursday or Friday menu item. We have schools that don't get direct delivery. And so when you hear that, like myself or Buildings and Grounds is driving late into the afternoon delivering food, it's because we have 5 schools that don't get direct ship. We get it in the warehouse, we sort it, we deliver it. So not getting that Wednesday delivery is really kind of changed the game for us, and it's really hard to keep up. We are going out for bid though. Just preface that, we are in a bid year, so.
So have you had to dispose of a lot of old food that is?
No, I have thrown 0 amounts of food away. I will not throw food away. So we are getting bread again from Costco because we can, and we're using that for our sandwiches. There will never be a day that I will throw food away. So we'll find a home for it, we'll find a place for it.
Great.
30,000 pounds of French fries.
Yeah,
If you
I
could-
was being really proactive.
If you could procure,
February.
Yeah, in
procure
February.
some ranch dressing, Bob and I might be your guys.
I mean,
I think you
you'd
have
be
a buyer.
amazed how fast it goes, but I was a little like, I told Marcy, I was like, I ordered 30,000 pounds of potatoes that I don't have anything to do with. So we'll use them up. It's just making the right menu for the right service, so.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank
Alyssa.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Are we up to enrollment? Reed is coming first.
Okay, good evening. Really a similar story to what everybody else was telling you. I mean, I can't begin to explain the amount of work that went into the start of the school year. We all knew that this fall was going to be an adventurous one anyways, right? Like, hey, my first fall here really from getting ready for school year. So this is a little bit new for me as well, but really just echoing on what my colleagues have said here before, between technology and food service and the teaching staff and the administration at these schools, I am impressed with the amount of teamwork and collaboration that went into getting these schools ready, especially during construction and what a normal school year prep would be, but to add construction and to add COVID on top of that is really just nothing short of phenomenal. So I can't commend my team enough. The custodians that are assigned in every building, the grounds workers that came in to help clean in the facilities, really it was an all hands on deck adventure. So they did all the heavy lifting. They did it all. And we were here on weekends. I think we had almost 400 man hours of work done on from the Friday afternoon before the start of school through Labor Day. On Labor Day, people were here getting these buildings prepped. We had over 400 man hours of time just in those 3 days. So there was just a huge commitment from everybody, and that's just my staff. That wasn't the technology group working in the background and everybody else getting ready and the teaching staff prepping their rooms. So there's too many highlights to put on a piece of paper here, so I'm just going to stick to some of them that are relevant to us here. With the implement of coming back to school and finding this out a few weeks before really when we would start school, we went through and implemented a COVID cleaning matrix that really helps articulate the what's and the when's. Like, when are we getting through these buildings? When are we cleaning, right? Because that's right on the forefront of everybody's concern is, how are we going to come into school? How are we going to be safe about doing it, right? And cleaning is one of those big priorities. So one thing we did, like I said, was we implemented that matrix. We were utilizing staff within the buildings to help us do those things. So in the classrooms, you have teachers and you have assistants in those classrooms that are doing nightly disinfecting, right? And in between touch points, doing cleaning on the manipulatives as well. We've gone out and there's been just a huge rush on cleaning equipment. We've procured and are expecting any day now our new cleaning equipment to come in and help us sanitize our facilities better. We didn't add any more staff to help clean, right? So what we normally would do is our general cleaning and disinfecting, but I'd say it's threefold on top of that of what the standard guidelines are now from the CDC, from MDH, and from other organizations, ASHRAE and all of these others that are giving us guidance. It's so much more that they're asking us to do just to be able to open schools. So what we've done is we've had to go through and reevaluate what are we not going to do the high priority disinfecting now. So we've shuffled those things around, and we can do it for the short run. For this year we could get by with doing some of these things, but that ongoing maintenance that we're not going to be doing in these facilities because we have to be disinfecting is something we need to keep our eye on as we move forward. So we're going to leverage technology to help us do our job better, right? That's one thing. If you don't have any more labor, you got to leverage technology. So we're getting backpack sprayers that can go through that are electrostatically charged, that'll cling on to surfaces and make sure that we can go what we'd normally do with what we would normally do with 5 people, we can do with 1 from a process standpoint. So we're going to leverage that. That stuff's coming in soon. We went and we implemented out through SFM, our insurance, a workman's comp organization company that helps us out here at the district. They have online training. We have over 36% of all of our staff right now. We just sent this email out a few weeks ago. We already have 36% of all staff trained on the proper use of and handling of chemicals. Those people are our frontline workers. They're the people that are handling that stuff every day. So our teachers and our paras, a lot of those people are already trained on this, so we meet our requirements there. We've gone out, we've procured, we've got 1,000 gallons of hand sanitizer on hand. We've installed over 250 dispensers throughout all these classrooms that don't have sinks in them. Fortunately, as part of our construction process, we've installed sinks in all of our classrooms, right? So when you go onto the CDC's website, what's the number one thing to help with the spread of germs? Wash your hands. Sanitizing hands is a secondary method of disinfecting, right? So washing your hands is so critical. We have sinks in every single one of these classrooms in our new schools. So there's more sinks coming. You can't get hand sanitizer dispensers right now. We're literally finding unique companies that are spinning off their own processes. Hilliard, out. Granger, out. Uline, out. You can't get them. And if you can get them, you can get 2. The other day we had a local company here in town. He got us over 250 of them. And that's what you've seen in the high school today, those automatic ones. We procured them, got them in here, we found them. We're sourcing and procuring new places every day, just like Sarah talked about with technology. They're looking around of who can we find that's going to help us out, right? We've got people that are coming to us, knocking on our door saying we can get you these things. So we're getting them set up, we're exploring those options and seeing what they can do for us. Besides getting ready for COVID and again the construction, we moved in all of our equipment from wave 1. We had again staff in here doing all of this and helping these teachers get ready for COVID-based learning. And really the buildings and grounds staff were the key cogs to making that happen. Some of our continued challenges. I think Alyssa talked about this with food and we talked about it with technology. Again, it's just getting the supplies. It's not that we can't do it or that we don't have the funding for it. It's physically finding the stuff. Alyssa was able to actually find through food service somebody that can procure latex gloves for us. All of our cleaning supply contractors were out. They were simply out of stock. We didn't have them. So we were able to join together. We purchased enough gloves to get us out there and get us through this first rush of school. But we still need to procure more. We're still going to be finding avenues to where we can pick that stuff up. That's really going to be important to us as we go into this fall when it's kind of being discussed about that there could be an inherent surge in COVID spreading, and that the disinfecting is going to be so much more important. We have to have those supplies to be able to do a good job and for people to do it safely. There are PPE requirements. We are looking at other chemicals that don't have those requirements. We got in 3 pallet loads of wipes that are a lot easier and friendlier for us to use that we don't need gloves for, so we can save those gloves for food service. We can save those gloves for custodians and for nurses that are coming in contact with bodily fluids and these harsher chemicals. So that's the big thing that we're trying to do here is maximize those resources. Some of the other challenges, I think when I was waiting for my turn here, I think I've responded to a dozen emails here, is we're just still recovering from the Summer Slam. Our schools, We went through the Summer Slam. We put a lot of work in place. You know, Damien, you guys walked around here today too. You saw what we were able to do this summer, $36 million worth of work. There's a lot of loose ends left. Ryan Schultz is setting hotspot or the 8 access points up, and we're getting technology closets up and going. And there's still a lot of those things that are out there yet, and we'll have some of those conversations with you as we talk about the future projects and those timelines. But there's a lot that goes into getting a school ready. It's simply not just turning the lights on and away you go. You know, you got to have all the background systems up and running. I think that's some of our biggest challenge here too. So we're really working through those. There's a lot of punch list items to do. There's a lot, but there are many things that are being completed daily. I think today we knocked off a dozen things that staff were asking for last week. We got off our list that's really going to make their lives easier. So really what we're trying to do is get it so that the teaching and learning side of it and our student interaction piece of it, that they don't see what's going on in the background, right? And I've said this from day one, a maintenance department, you don't want to see the maintenance guys. They should be working in the closets, they should be working in the boiler rooms. That's where that's where they do their best work, is there taking care of those systems. If we're out here having to work in the spaces, then we're not doing our job well. So we want to get these spaces prepared and get out of the way so that they can teach kids and staff can work. And some of the other challenges here too is with the construction schedules. This summer we realized, I think we've really realized how much we bit off the first summer. It was a lot. It was a lot in a normal year. And then you throw on top of it pandemics and labor shortages and material shortages and everything else. It was a really hard fall to get ready for school. And again, I mentioned that earlier, but to have staff get ready, the staff didn't feel like they had enough time to get ready in these buildings. The buildings and grounds crews got them. In some instances, we got it the Friday before school started, and we worked the whole weekend just to get it ready to go. So really, I think moving forward as some of these continued challenges is really keeping an eye on what do we need to make sure that we don't do what we did again this summer, so that we are absolutely successful when we open that school on day one, that there's not as many loose ends laying around. I think that'll be a continued challenge for us. So. Any questions that you have for me?
Well, thank you, Reed.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, and Marcy.
All right. Good evening. So as with all numbers, we always look at last year's, right? So we started off with pulling last year's numbers, and I just want to preface that this is kindergarten through 12th grade. Sue's still cleaning up the early childhood numbers, so we did not include those numbers. But as of the beginning of last year, which we also want to talk about, last year we had started a week ahead of time, and this data was also a week later. So we had 3 weeks of student numbers that were already kind of cleaned up. We're only a week into this data, so we want to put a big asterisk by the numbers that we're presenting, but we do think you should be aware of what we have as of today. So last year we started with 6,522. At the end of the year, we ended the student count with 6,448. So we were down 74 from the beginning of the school year. And this is student count, which ADMs are based on if a kid is here all year, they are 1 ADM. We had a revised budget of 6,417. We actually ended the year as of 9/8 with 6,378.97. So that end of the year student count, 6,448, converted to 6,378, about 6,379 ADMs. So we were down 38 from the revised budget. Now we're talking, fast forward to today, we reduced the budget by 73 ADMs. When we were presenting the budget, we had done an additional 2 per grade level, so an additional 26 on top of just what we had planned starting in January. And as of today, the kindergarten through 12th grade student count is 6,206, and our preliminary budget is 6,344 ADMs. So if those 6,206 stay throughout the whole year, that would be our ADMs. We would be down 138 from our budget. Also wanted to note on there that we do have distance learners of 1,113. That is in the 6,206. It's not on top of. And I did also include the enrollment report that I normally present just if you wanted to view it. It is missing the early childhood piece. Let me zoom in.
So, Marcia, just like quick math, and we're down about 2%.
That sounds like a small number, but when you we earn around 10, we always.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Yeah.
diminishing that, but the financial impact, but it's
Yeah.
about 2% or a little over.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
And would you say a majority of that number is from kindergarten?
We probably have close to 60 kindergarten students that chose to hold.
To hold, 60.
We have the potential to
So
have a
half.
plethora of kindergarten students next year.
Yes.
But there were a lot of kindergartners that are just holding them for a week. or a
We
year.
have 56 kindergartners, but first grade, we have 76, 68 second graders, 84 third graders, 85 fourth graders, 73 fifth graders, 101, I'm talking distance learning now, right? 101 sixth graders, 91 seventh graders, 102. You can just see that it's all of the classes, but as they get closer to the high school, they get bigger. But all of the classes have a significant amount of kids that are not coming or are distance learning.
Now, for our kindergartners, right now, we have 391 kindergarten students.
Right.
We would have estimated.
Including the distance learners.
And that includes everyone, yes.
Okay.
And we would have anticipated somewhere in the 460 to
456 is what we had planned. 456.
Okay.
And like I said, the vast majority of those kindergartners who are not attending now are planning on coming next year. They're holding on.
Yeah.
So this is the normal report. As I said, I could probably do another one in the second board meeting, just so you guys could have a little more comparable to last year's numbers. But just wanted you to have that data. Are there any questions on the enrollment?
I don't. The reason I asked about the percentage piece is that I'm, in many ways, pleasantly surprised that that's only the variation. Realizing we have 1,100 whatever distance learning, but as a total.
And we
seems
were
reasonable.
pleased too that in our budgeting that we had reduced by the 73, because that would have been even a bigger blow had we had to add those 73 on top of it. We would have been up over 200.
Good. Any questions for Marcy or Sue? Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't want to stay?
Not really.
Okay, and then wanted to give you a budget update on the CARES Fund. So the CARES Fund is the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. And of that, we had CRF funds, which can be used for the cleaning supplies, disinfectant sprayers, mental health supports, and then there's two categories. The other category is student, family, and staff support uses, so technology devices, internet access, a lot of things that we are purchasing, so that's great. Both of those categories need to be spent by December 30th. The begin date is July 1st. So you're going to see some of the items that we purchased back in March. We're going to use the GEAR and ESSER funds, but as soon as the CARES funds or the CRF funds start in July, we're going to switch to those, try to spend those, and then we'll have to switch back to the other funds. So the GEARS funds, Governor's Emergency Education Relief, is used for expanding technology, improving student-to-teacher ratios for summer school programming, and wraparound services for children ages 0 to 8. So there, we're going to use the technology piece. The ESSER funds, elementary and secondary school emergency relief, that's kind of a broad, you can use it for all sorts of things. It's a very generic statement, but that's what is in the application. And the GEAR and ESSER funds need to be used by September 30th. So I included a link of what we have spent to date and then estimates. So for the CRF funds. You guys see that okay? Again, this is July 1st to 12/30. We have about 1.7 million to spend. The COVID coordinator that we talked about, half of that position, so from July to December will come out of there. And then the remainder will come out of the gear and ESSER funds for the remainder of the year. The long-term subs, so with distance learning, we've had to hire some long-term subs so that teachers are assigned to distance learning. We need a sub for their position. There's 8 certified and 1 non-certified as of last Friday, and that's the dollar amount. You'll see that the long-term subs in options 1, 2, and 3 is 0. So right now, these long-term subs are going to be in through the trimester. That's when families could potentially make the change to coming back, or we'll have to reassess at that time. So right now it's 0. We may need to put numbers in there if we continue to need those subs after the trimester. The benchmark literacy, so that is curriculum that we needed for online learning. The Chromebook licenses, Chromebooks, those are all what you approved back in June. We purchased them in August. The power cords are related to the Chromebooks, and the hotspots are July through December, again, to just basically that gap of time. And then they're also on the gears and ESSER funds because we're hoping to capture the distance learning from March to June, and then also the remainder of this year. And then you'll see on the gears and ESSERs, the Chromebooks that we purchased back in April, we're going to use those funds for when we made the change to distance learning in March. So there is the potential gear ESSER carryover. However, we have more time to spend that, so we're just going to keep letting that roll forward as things come up if we no longer have the CRF funds. The food service talked about needing the badges and the scanners for more touchless. That's going to come out of the CRF funds. Classroom microphones, cameras, Sarah, got that approval a couple months ago. That will also come out of these funds. Cleaning sprayers that Reed had talked about, that's going to come out of these funds. PPE, the masks, the shields, gowns, all of that will come out of these funds. Site supplies, so we've had several sites who are purchasing bins and baskets to keep items separated in the classroom. So those types of supplies can come out of here as well because it wouldn't be necessary had it not been for COVID. Online subscriptions, those are for classrooms, something that we may not have looked at, but since we're trying to do more of the distance, we are purchasing more online subscriptions. Food service, buildings and grounds truck. So September 1st, Alyssa was notified that the summer food service program was extended. We're looking at the potential cost of they call it a cube truck, so refrigerated. So with the delivery of food and moving, she was talking about how she's having to move more food. That's a potential purchase there as well. And then professional development, we had one day where we had teacher certified and non-certified subs come in to kind of get a preview of what subbing at distance learning looked like. And that's just one day, and we may do more, but that is the actual cost just for that one day. So that number could increase. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up was that gear and ESSER funds. There are option 1, 2, and 3, and we're still trying to figure out what's our best option because if we do option 1 or 2, then it's limited to title schools, but we would get more funds. And if we can make it work, we would get more funds out of that, so that would be the bigger benefit for us. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, nice job. Option 3 allows for all of the schools to be able to get benefits from these funds, whereas we only have 4 schools that are title schools. And so you could only use these funds, the gear and ESSER, in option 1 and 2 for those 4 schools. And so we're really looking at option 3 right now, that it can be more diversified throughout the district and can address high school and middle school and such as well.
Yeah.
So, but it is less money, as you can tell, but we just really think that it'll benefit our district as a whole and provide more equity.
Mm-hmm.
Marcy, do you think that there will be more CARES funds coming in next year?
Not that I've heard. There's been a lot of talk, though, of trying to get an extension on the CRF funds because it is such a limited time. Nothing's been approved, but school districts are making that request to try to get an extension on it.
How strong is the fund balance, and do you predict that may go down through the pandemic?
I'll be honest, with the enrollment numbers today, it is a little scary because you take that number times how much we normally get. And if the CRF funds do go away, then we have to make some decisions on, can we continue this model? Because it is expensive to run this model.
Good. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So does this sum up our updates?
This does.
It does, okay.
This sums it up, and again,
Yeah.
this is why we do what we do,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um, it's hard to tell you everything, and so it was nice to have people come in and just share just some of the great things that are going on and some of the concerns, and just to let the board, I know it got lengthy tonight, but we just really appreciate you listening and hearing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a great job by everyone. And thanks for putting the extra time in this evening to share and bring us up to date. You know, I often, with my own staff and at work, when we take on a new large project or we acquire something, I often let them know that let's don't look for perfection on that first day or that first week or that second week, but let's get started. And I know I shared with different folks over as we were getting closer and closer to school starting, that the scariest day is that first day. But now we're in business, the doors are open, and we can constantly make adjustments and improvements and start to make life a bit easier. And I would just encourage all of our staff, let's not get into a retreat mode. Let's make sure that we're satisfied with what we're doing. We're not going to answer and do everything right. You're not going to be able to please every parent, every student, every staff member. And, we have to be diligent. We have to understand and recognize that. But let's work together to make it better going forward. Because a lot of things can happen in the next 30 days. As we know, with our governor changing or extending the executive orders, well, when that expires, it's going to expire at some point in time, that's going to give us more flexibility on what we're going to always have safety and security in minds of our staff and kids, but it's going to also allow a lot more flexibility to do what is absolutely right as well. So we have a lot of challenges, but we're through the first week. And let's keep our sights of eventually, when we have all kids and all staff back, that I think we keep marching in that direction, and that day will come. So good job by everybody, though, and tough work, long days, long hours, and appreciate all the work, all the efforts. Okay, well, with that in mind, and I don't know if Reed, are you still planning, is there an update on the Lowell Elementary?
I can give you a 10-second update if you like. Yes, Mr. Chair, I can.
Piggyback on. Reed, Mr. Campbell? Reed?
Yes.
Can you just hang on 1 second here? I was actually talking to Reed TC about an update, so hang on a second. I know you're anxious.
Yes.
All right, one real quick brief update. We've had these conversations at our project oversight group as well, but just wanted to give the full board an update. There's a property that a house that is still present over by Lowell Elementary. There was discussions about that house and wanting to make sure that we gave an opportunity for our community to bid on that. We had a number of interested people at one point. We reached out to all of them and offered in an ability for them to provide a response to an RFP. We did get 2 responses back. Unfortunately, one of them said they're not interested. The second one gave us an offer. So the property that sits there, we worked with our excavating contractor on site that had that under their scope to demolish it. So it would have been a net savings of It's roughly, I don't have the exact dollars and cents, pennies, I do have it on my computer, but it was an $8,000 deduct, there was some mobilization charges, and then we received a $2,000 bid for the house, because there's a lot of mobilization and moving of that has to take place. So you got to jack it up and move it down the street and cover all the utilities. So really, in the end, it would be a net gain to the project of about $5,000, but there is somebody that's interested in doing that. So that is with Mike Duvall from Piper Property Management. And we have reached back out to him, and he is working with his moving contractors to give us a schedule on when that house can be off of our site, so that we can cut Mark and Charles from the ICS team loose on getting that site prepared before we get into frozen ground conditions. So just a real quick, brief overview for you all. We're moving forward with it. Michael's working on it from his end, and we'll be getting back to us with what his timeline would be for what he needs to move that out of there. So.
Okay, good, thank you, Reed.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to get into 6 quick for action items. Our first one is approval of the third and final reading of policy 431, dress code and appearance, which was presented on before.
I'll move. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Director Kern, second by Director Nystrom for approval of policy.
That was Nelson.
Nelson.
What'd I say?
Kern.
Oh, you second?
I first.
Second. Ruth was first.
Oh, I didn't hear you at all on that one.
He said Nystrom.
Okay. Did you say?
So Ruth, you did second? Did you say?
No, she made the motion and Bob seconded it.
Yeah.
Who made the motion or Ruth did?
Ruth.
Whew.
This has been a long meeting.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll just say motion by somebody and seconded by someone
Yeah.
else. All right. So we have a motion by Director Nelson, seconded by Director Nystrom for approval of policy 431. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Next item is approval of the third and final reading of MSBA policy 808, face coverings policy as presented before.
I'll make the
I so
motion.
move approval of policy 808.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Campbell, second by Director Nystrom for approval of policy 808. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-1. Next item is approval of the second and final reading of MSBA policy 410, which is a family medical leave policy as presented previously.
I move for the approval of the second and final reading of the MSBA policy number 410, family medical leave policy as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Blackland, second by Director Kern for approval of policy 410. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Next up will be a presentation by Corey Reynolds on policy 902.
Good evening. I will
Corey.
make this quick. Before you tonight is some revisions to policy 902 that we talked about for the first time. I don't even remember when, but we're back again. So you have before you the red line edition of the policy itself. The notable changes there are that we removed the gambling section, mostly because it would inhibit some of the fundraising efforts of the people who use our facilities, like raffles or 50/50s, that kind of thing. I also included the word activities with government things, so it now reads government activities and elections. The second big item was an adjustment of the fees, and included in the board book is a dashboard view again, where you can see how the fees compare to what they are currently. And then in the appendix, you can see the red line version, so how they have changed from what we first proposed to now. And And then finally, a draft budget, which this one I will pull up, just to give you an idea of what those changes mean. And just a couple of notes about the information you're seeing. All these calculations are based on our last normal year, which would be 2018-19. So our facility use in the future will be quite different because we have a number of new gyms and other new spaces. So these are our best estimates, but certainly there is a lot of uncertainty around those numbers. But to the best of our ability, this is the data we have. So you see this column here, the 2018-19 with proposed fees. That should be read as the original proposed fees. And then the next column is with updated fees. So those are the red line fees that you see in the appendix. So you could see quite a difference in what that facility use would generate in terms of revenue for the district. Are there any questions or more information I can provide?
I had one question. With Forest View, the cafetorium, I noticed that the price is less. What was the reasoning with that?
It was less, did you say?
It was, if I was reading it right, yes, it was proposed at a smaller dollar amount from what it used to be. I think it was 83 and then down to 30 in the tier 3.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yep, so my whole strategy, if you will, for approaching these fees was for there to be some relationship between their size or capacity and the fee. I don't know where the 83 came from. I don't know how it related to the other dollar figures on the current fee schedule, but here I do. So here we put there's kind of a pattern or a rhyme or a reason to them. So that was one of the fees that, in order to fit the pattern here,
Sure.
it was reduced.
Sure. Good.
So Corey, with the tax exempt youth, the entities in the community, they've all been communicated with at this point in terms of being made aware of this
They have
change?
not seen the red line versions because I wanted you to see those first, but I will send those out to those organizations.
Got it.
Yep, I have a mailing list of facility users and I have been trying to keep them up to date on all this information, so.
That's great. I think they feel like they've been up to date, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good. Good.
One other question, which is a bit of a rider, but so these tier 2 tax exempt youth, they're not able to use our facilities at this point?
At this point,
Due to COVID?
no one above a tier 1 is able to use our facilities. That's correct.
Is there any, putting you on this, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I like it.
Is there any way around that? Because years ago, when we used to have youth sports, feeder programs, they were district feeder programs. Now, with budget cuts in the past, we don't have those feeder programs, and these programs such as BYAA or even BBA and LASA and on from there really are our feeder programs. But there's no way around that. No.
Well, we are
footwork?
allowing people to use our outdoor facilities. Of course, that's limited in time. At this point, the guidelines from the state, the health department, and the Department of Education both state that in-person and hybrid learning, that we would limit all non-essential visitors to buildings. And it specifically states volunteers and renters of the facility. So I've been in communication with some of those to see if there's some way that, if it was staffed by Brainerd Public Schools staffed and it was for Brainerd Public School students only, those are the two groups that currently do have access to our buildings. Perhaps community ed could help facilitate some activities that way. We're looking at that, but.
Sounds hopeful, at least or possible.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
We're trying.
Okay, any other questions for Corey?
I have one more question. Is there going to be one person who will be responsible for collecting money or renting the facility? Is there a person?
Yeah, so the staffing model to support this is still very much in development, both because we're still working to find the exact right model that's going to fit us, and because the community ed staff is quite limited right now. So ordinarily, the rental, like the back end things, parts of renting, the person you call to schedule a gym or classroom or something, normally that is a community ed staff person. At this time, I guess it continues to be a community ed staff person. That is me and my secretaries.
Okay.
So at this point, that's what we're doing. But we do hope to hire somebody eventually when we can
normal.
rent the facilities again. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Corey?
I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of MSBA Policy 902, use of school district facilities and equipment as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Blacklands for approval of MSBA Policy 902. Any further discussion?
So this one will have a third reading too, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then I was amiss in not asking, did we have any communications on any of these policies from the public since the first reading or the second reading?
I believe at one of the last meetings we had where there was still public in attendance, two gentlemen spoke to these issues, somebody from the Basketball Association and another person from the Soccer
Okay.
Association.
But I'm just talking since we read them.
I have been in communication with them, and if I have encouraged people, if and when they felt like my answers didn't make sense to them, I have encouraged them to reach out to you, so.
And Corey did lead a meeting with a couple of board members at that meeting and a whole team of us there to go through each of the items individually. So, as asked by the board after the first reading.
Okay, good question. Any other questions? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I just want to say thank you, Corey. I know you've gone through a lot on this. It's been a lot of pressure. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item is approval of the 2021 security service contract. And Marcy's going to present to us.
And I did ask Andrea to come as well. So this is the same contract that was presented at the last meeting. There's been no changes. I did talk with GSSC and they are totally willing to, per Andrea, start the year off with 2.5 and potentially decrease as we assess. And I asked Andrea to come to kind of explain why she wants to start the year off at 2.5.
Hi, everybody. I think it's important for us to know that although we have half, actually less, because of distance learners of the students in our buildings, we have the same amount of campus that we're responsible to provide strong supervision and support to. And in a year of unknowns, given the construction, we've had a change of where we load buses and load and unload buses. And there is a strong need to have a presence down in the lower site. And also we have, our student parking is limited, but it also is still separated on our campus. So we are using the East River Road lot, and then we're also using what we call the pit lot, and then we're using the lower lot. So we're using 3 different parking areas for our students. And again, with construction, we are still using 6 classrooms over at South Campus, but we have moved as many of our students into the North Campus building as possible. But we still need to have some eyes and presence on our campus over in that South Campus building. And I think our security company has demonstrated flexibility with us so that if we get the year started and we feel like we can scale back, Marcy knows that I'm willing and we are willing to do that. I think just for the start of the year, we wanted a positive and safe start to our school year.
Andrew, can you give us an update on the new service officer?
Yeah, our new school resource officer, Drew. Officer Drew is done a really good job. He had big shoes to fill, and he felt that right away because the first day of school, everyone was asking, all the kids were asking where Troy was, and he has really done a nice job in the first 2 weeks. Been very visible, which is an expectation that we have, is that he is visible throughout the day, and also just very approachable. One of the best attributes of Troy was his ability to connect with all of our students. And Drew spent quite a bit of time last year subbing when Troy needed to be out. So I think he had a good feel for the position. And now he's just doing his best to learn the students' names and also identify where some of the needs are in our building. So he's doing a really nice job.
Great.
Good. Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2021 security services contract with GSSC for 2.5 security officers at Brainerd High School as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Campbell for approval of the 2.5 security officers. Any further discussion?
I'll just say that I understand your concerns and I'll vote for this, and I hope we do relook at it. My main purpose in questioning that is I just would like to have as much student support for mental health and other things as we can have, and so, if we don't need 2.5 security officers, I'd rather put those dollars elsewhere, so.
I completely understand. I do want to note, though, that the presence of security officers at times can make students feel very safe, especially if they're experiencing some peer issues or maybe other issues going on. So our security guards have been also very good to work with as far as approachable, respectful, and not getting into power struggles with teenagers at times. And so
they don't just sit at a desk and kind of stare.
No, actually, we did this past week have to kind of adjust a little bit because they have some new officers.
Okay.
And so we want them to be visible also. But we do have some hot spots. As you know, South Fifth Street is a big crossing area, so we have crossing guards there, but also a security presence is needed there. And then in the lower lot for school. So we try to separate them out for that halftime position to be there before school and after school.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Last item is approval of our revised Baxter SRO agreement.
All right, so this looks a little bit different than the previous agreement. Our legal counsel recommended that we do this new draft. It just basically recognizes that the SRO should not be dealing with discipline. So this was from our legal counsel. The city agreed to everything in it. We had to make a couple modifications. The payment is about a 3% increase this year, and then 2% the following year. And along with the GSSC contract, are both paid out of Safe Schools funds.
So, Marcy, do you know on the, well, I guess on Wednesdays there are still kids at Forest View, but it said something about that we pay them.
Yes.
No matter what. What are those officers doing when they're not working?
So we had that discussion because originally, actually, we had it where we would not pay for those services, but they came back and said that, this position was added for the school, and we don't have work for that person if they're not in school. So what we talked about was during distance learning, if that person is going to work on truancy, if they're at the middle school and Wednesdays they're not needed, maybe they can go to the elementaries. So they're working on alternatives to keep that this person could work on.
Okay. Yeah, I hope we make good use of them during those times too.
Yes.
So, and my only other concern is it didn't seem, usually our contracts seem to have a thing where either party can get out of the contract with a 30, 60, 90-day notice, and I didn't see that in here.
The indemnification, I think that John added that.
Let's see.
Just the, I guess, waiver and enforcement, I guess, is kind of what I
Where
would
is
look at. It is on page 6. Basically saying if you don't follow through with this contract, either party is responsible for its own costs.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, usually we have something in these contracts, I've looked at a lot of them where given some, and it
X
would
amount
have
of
to probably
days.
be longer than 30 days since this is, but like a 90-day notice or something. So I'm just wondering if we should add that.
Honestly, I'm not too surprised that we don't have anything, just because we've always had this, or not we've always had, but it's not a position that would technically go away, even if we decreased enrollment, or, and if they have turnover, they'll refill the position.
Okay. Just seems like standard contract copy.
Language.
There's always a note.
Yeah. I suppose there's some risk. I mean, if we had like a 90-day out clause, there's a risk then that we get into it and they want to exercise that, and we have to re-up, we've got to figure out something. So I know exactly what you're talking about, but it might be, as Marcy said, that the likelihood that we don't want the service is probably pretty slim, and they have to perform.
Okay.
But good point.
The other thing is, if you want us to take it back and see about adding language in there, we certainly can do that too.
I think they would be worried that we would exercise that, and they're already saying they created this position for us. So it's like you say, Tom, it's just sort of hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is a 2-year commitment, so
Oh, yeah, that's true.
it's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has always been a 2-year, or I shouldn't say always, but the SRO contract with Brainerd has always been a 2-year. We're following that suit. And this will be presented to the city council tomorrow night, if you approve.
I think too, with safety and security always being our first goal and objective, and whether it was our bond project or if it's COVID or anything like that, it would be very unlikely that we would eliminate an SRO officer. Now, if there's somebody that's not doing a good job or something, we still have that opportunity to have those conversations.
Okay.
But I don't see that we would ever eliminate that position, at least not in today's world.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we do have the opportunity with that one clause that if we're not happy, we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I would so move to approve the revised Baxter SRO agreement as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Director Kern, second by Director Blacklands for approval of the revised Baxter SRO agreement. Any further discussion? Not those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I always forget about. Marcy, if you want to, we're going to move right into informational. If you've got anything else you want to add.
I'll be very brief, just that the levy will be at the next meeting, and we'll also be asking you guys to approve a resolution to issue the remaining long-term facilities maintenance bonds with the project, so that goes on this levy. So I will be presenting both of those at the next meeting. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, we're ready for you.
Oh, you are good. All right. Okay, God, the foundation did meet today at 3 o'clock. And new president Jenny Castle ran the meeting, and Brooke Malik is the new vice president. They also inducted 4 new members. And then we got outgoing members of Angie Nelson and Deb Erickson. So make sure if you see them out and about to say thank you for their long term on the board. They did an excellent job, but we'll miss them on the board. Jessica reported on and showed a new 4-page flyer insert that's going to be coming out in the dispatch in the future here. It looked really nice. The 4A grant cycle is opened earlier than normal, so the teachers can start putting in their requests for some grants that will be coming up. They put a hold on the United Way Give deal with the school district and probably do that sometime in October. The homecoming run is going to be virtual this year, so there won't let anything live down at the field or anything, so it's all going to be a virtual homecoming run. What else was covered? Oh, we have to work on our MOU between the school district and the foundation, so we got some work to do on that. Maybe we'll get together on that. And then the other big discussion was on the big event, on just what we're going to do with the big event, if it's still going to be moving forward and what kind of event that's going to be. So more to come on that, and that's the short and sweet of it.
Okay, thank you, Reed.
Yep.
Superintendent's report.
No further report.
What?
I always give big kudos when I do that. I think I said enough tonight.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. So in your agenda, of course, there's a number of meetings scheduled for the next few weeks here as well. Thank you, everyone, for your passion and willingness to stay a little bit later than I'd like to see even normal, but I don't even know that that's true anymore. But if there's no further business, we will stand adjourned.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair,
everyone.
just one other thing quick. October 6th is the School Board Candidate Forum at 6 p.m. And I think it'll be streamed live. So it's the only, I think it's the only candidate forum.
It'll be streamed live? I
I
hadn't
thi-
heard that, okay.
Okay, and I'm not sure, I'm just assuming that.
I just wondered how they would do that, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good,
Okay, good. Thank you.
good. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank everyone too for listening today and for hearing everyone, so it's just good information.
Yes, good. Very good.
Very good.
We are.
Great information.
See you, Reed.
Yep, see you guys. Thank you.
Yep.
8:55?